What is going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome back to another Dragon Ball fan manga review, where today we're going to be reviewing the fan manga entitled Dragon Ball Multiverse, which of course is a fan manga set within its own timeline involving characters from both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. But the overall concept of Dragon Ball Multiverse involves fighters from different quadrants and parallel worlds in which come together for this grand multiverse battle to determine which universe and team is superior than the rest. And for many years now, I've been reviewing Dragon Ball fan concepts and mangas, so today we're going to be diving further into this manga chapter to further understand the gravity and nature of Dragon Ball Multiverse. So with that, we begin with Dragon Ball Multiverse manga chapter number 7, exactly where we left off, with Master Krillin having to fight Celza, in which we see Celza on the offensive as he says, "You senile old fart, I'll teach you a lesson," and he tries to attack Krillin, but it looks like Krillin is getting the upper hand on Celza, as later on we see how Krillin says, "Have a little bit of self-control," with Celza having to have a mark on his face and saying, "Bastard, but this midget can't hit this far, I must use that," in which we see how Krillin is trying to hit him, in which how momentarily he takes off his shell and he just completely bashes Celza with that, and Krillin having to say, "I may be old, but you stay an eternal sucker," and that kind of triggered Celza, in which he says, "Enough," and he says, "Time to rest your resistance, old turtle, this technique even cuts through your metal," in which Krillin says, "Scuff my beautiful shell, no way, Kienzan," and he formulates the Destructo Disc right in front, as Krillin then throws it in his direction, in which we see Celza's energy blade and Krillin's Destructo Disc collide, as we see later on how Celza has his entire hand, his entire arm cut off by Krillin's Destructo Disc, and which again is very gory, because if you guys go back to my previous manga chapter reviews, we've seen many characters so far either get their arms blown off or decapitated. So far this manga has been very gory, in which we see how Celza drops on down to the ground, he says "impossible," and then we see how Krillin says, "Inferior monster, this end really fits you, I'm sure," and we see how the announcer says, "Victory of Krillin from universe number 9, get back to your personal spaces," and just as that happened, we see how Goku walks on over and he says, "Hey Krillin," with Krillin's response having to be a little shocking and saying, "What do you want saying?" and Goku having to say, "Well, it's me, Goku, it's so cool that you're here, I mean, you've become an old master," and Krillin having to say, "I don't know you, but I know you're Saiyan friend, and it's a pity that most of the universes are filled with monsters like you, Saiyans, demons, Coolas, emperors, cyborgs, Babidi. This place isn't really respectable," in which in this universe it looks like Krillin had never met Goku, but he had encountered other people. Accordingly enough, he must have encountered Vegeta during the time when the Saiyans like Nappa and Vegeta had arrived, when Krillin had fought alongside Goku. This must be to where Goku had never landed on Earth, to where Krillin had fought the Saiyans by himself, in which we see how the announcer says, "We have finished the first half of the 30-second finals, let's begin a lunch break," in which we see all the Kaioshins, we see all the respective universes, even Orale, if you guys pay close attention to see, everyone's eating. We see how Majin Buu has like the best feast, all he has is candy and lollipops and chocolate and bubblegum. We see Bojack eating, Cooler and his family are eating, even the one Mega Namekian, in which represents his own universe by himself, is eating, the Ginyu Force is eating, so everyone is pretty much having a lunch break, and we see how all of a sudden Babidi is, you know, eating with Majin Buu, and Majin Buu is like turning Babidi's food into candy, in which Babidi says, "Stop turning my dishes into candy," in which we pan back to Future Trunks, and Future Trunks says, "I'd like to join my friends from the past, but which universe do I go to? The 16th universe or the 18th universe?" And it's kind of funny because if you look at everyone who's eating, the only universe that seems to be eating like savages are the Saiyans, and we see Vegeta, Kakarot, Raditz, and Nappa, they're all eating and they're just devouring the food in front of them, and in which we also see the androids in 17 having to say, "Good food, that's what's missing," and 18 having to say, "And who killed the last cook on Earth, huh? It was all because of you." The only person that doesn't seem to be eating is Cell, and he's like standing there just watching everyone, almost like some sick psycho, and we see how Vegeto's universe is eating, our universe is eating, even the spectators in the crowd are eating good food, and we see how Piccolo is talking to Vegito, and Piccolo having to say, "So, who do you think will win?" And Vegito having to say, "Well, me, duh," and Piccolo having to say, "Well, no one here worries you, not even that Super Majin Buu," with Vegito having to say, "Well, I mean, he'll be far from the most dangerous opponent, but still, against me, no way. So Vegito is very confident in telling Piccolo that he's gonna win, with Bra having to say, well, what about him? What about Broly? And Vegito having to say, well, you're making a fuss about him. Broly's power must have been growing consistently for years, producing a terrifying result. I think he is the one with the biggest power level here, one brutal and enormous strength, but he will get eliminated and sent back to his universe. He will attack the audience for sure. In which Goten says, wait, so can you beat him? And Vegito having to say, of course I can beat him, unless I'm his first opponent. And in which we see the ring announcer say, the tournament will resume in 10 minutes. And we see how Trunks and Goten, they're gagging, they're choking on their food, because the very second the actual announcer announces that the tournament is going to resume, they announce that Vegito from universe number 16 will go up against the unknown participant of universe number 20. So the irony in Vegito having to talk about Broly, all of a sudden everyone is just like choking on their food and whatnot, and we see how the participants are saying, oh, I've been told that his name is Broly. And we see how one of the Namekians says, I was also told that he is a dangerous maniac and should not be awakened, with one of the tournament holders saying, come on, Master Namek, I mean, where's your sports spirit? Look. And then he says, from a simple push of this button, I could send each of the participants of universe 20 back home. Your Broly will be back into emptiness of space where I found him. So the Namekian is picking up this bad feeling that they should not awaken this dude, because if they do, it'll spell trouble. And we pan back to our characters and we see how Goku says, if Broly's power kept growing like we saw him do, even Vegeta won't be able to do a thing, with Vegeta having to say, yeah, if he's still alive, with Goku having to reply by saying, once all the audience is dead, do you think they'll continue the tournament? And Vegeta having to say, well, the children will die too, so if he does come back, everyone's gonna die. And Trunks having to say, hey, like, come on, man. And Vegeta having to say, I'm not kidding around, that's exactly what'll happen. And Goku having to say, Bra, Pan, Videl, and everyone who wants to go into the spectators' bleachers, with Gohan having to tell Pan, it's protected by an anti-energy field. You won't see very much from up there, but you will be safer. With Pan having to say, but we won't see a thing if we can't follow the energies, with Goku having to say, you're staying, in which we see how Vegeta says, do I look like I'm moving? Because nobody seems to be moving, nobody seems to be budging, because everyone realizes that this fight's about to be very dangerous. So Goku's wondering if Vegeta's gonna stay, Vegeta agrees, and Gohan having to argue with Pan. And if you look closely, I mean, the end result of having Vegito versus Broly, who never stopped growing, is a very dangerous scenario to have, because this spells out trouble for everyone who knows Broly and the fact that he's just a maniac. So we see how Nappa and Raditz are talking, and Raditz having to say, well, we'll finally see those two mysteries in action, with Nappa having to say, you're right, the guy in the ice cube will never wake up, again insinuating that he might be dead, with the alternate Vegeta and Kakarot having to say, this Vegito seems really overconfident, the locks on his head are very ugly, in which Vegeta is talking about his hair, and then he also says he looks like nothing, with Kakarot having to say, he looks like he has a foolish look, and it looks like he has nothing to worry about, and on his back he has ridiculous spikes, pretty much downplaying Vegito and making fun of him. And then we see how everyone is trying to melt the ice for Broly, in which one of them says, healer, can you use your power? And we see how the ice begins to crack, and even one of the ring holders is saying, I sense a pulse, he is alive. And just as quickly as he said that, all of a sudden this massive arm just grabs this guy and just crushes him into nothing. He throws the guy through the ice, and Goku and Vegeta are like, holy shit, it's starting, with the Namekian having to say, oh my god. So Broly already is on a massive hunt, and then we see how Broly powers up. Now this is the scary thing, Broly powers up, and we see how Goten and Trunks and everyone else is saying, wow, his power is just huge, with Piccolo having to say, even after waking up from hibernation, his power is still immeasurable. And we see how the only person here that doesn't seem to be worried is Vegito, and we see how Broly transcends, he maxes out his legendary Super Saiyan powers, in which he looks very intimidating until one of the tournament holders says he must be stopped, and we see how Broly clenches his fist and he throws this massive energy ball in someone's direction, in which the Kaioshin actually actually intervene in deflecting their blasts, and we see how Gohan says he hasn't changed a bit. So everyone here is trying to deflect all the blasts that he's launching, and the only person or people that don't seem to be moving are Cell, Bojack, and the Mega Namekian, because we see how these energy blasts are just going in every single direction. They're smacking the barrier in which protects the audience, and we see how even Kat, the woman that fought Bardock earlier, is saying this one is crazy, I can't believe this. And what's really cool is we see one of the Mega Namekians catch the blast and crush it in his hand. Majin Buu, same thing. Majin Buu is able to completely deflect the blast, in which we also see Kakarot kicking some of the blast up in the air. Trunks uses his sword to completely cut through the blast. So there are certain people here that seem to be deflecting Broly's blast, in which Future Trunks says, so what happens now? In which the tournament holder says he's totally mad, I'm sending him back, and just as he said earlier, he's trying to press the button to send Broly back to his universe, but then he says it's not working, there has to be a short malfunction, and then we see how all of a sudden Super Majin Buu aims his tentacle up and he says it would be such a shame if this fight couldn't happen because of a birdie who's too worried about the security of his arena, in which all of a sudden Broly's about to do something, and then he turns around and he notices Goku, he notices Kakarot, and he just begins to charge in Goku's direction. And from that point on, the manga chapter comes to a conclusion, in which you have to notice that certain characters in this manga chapter didn't seem to take Broly as a threat, some of these characters having to be the Mega Namekian, even Cell, alongside many others. So who's to really say how strong Broly is as of this point right now? We're only 168 pages into this manga out of 1,309, so I'm pretty sure as the manga continues, Broly is going to demonstrate more of his powers. But post your comments down below. What are your overall thoughts on Broly having to be resurrected? What are your overall thoughts on most fighters in this tournament, such as Super Majin Buu, such as Super Perfect Cell, and others, seemingly not having to be worried about Broly's resurrection? And in which, for anybody out there who's wondering, Broly is so strong in his universe throughout the entire 27 years that he's been active, he's never stopped growing in power. His power has always been increasing according to Vegeta, in which has been consistent, in which makes him the ultimate fighter because he has one singular power that seems to overpower everyone else. I'm not entirely sure if I want to say that Broly is going to be the strongest in this manga chapter because there are other fighters such as Super Majin Buu, Vegeta, Cell, even possibly Bojack and Trunks that could also be just as strong if not stronger. But post your comments down below, guys. Thank you all for watching. If you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to go on ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys, on your way out. That way you guys are always up to date with all the latest in Dragon Ball news, information, and updates. If you guys enjoyed the manga review, don't forget to go on ahead and slap a like down below. Tune back in for more. Don't forget to also turn on notifications, guys. That way you guys are always notified whenever I post a Dragon Ball fan manga review. And I also want to say, in case you guys have any other fan mangas for me to review, you guys can go on ahead and let me know down below. Even if it's your own, I would like to go on ahead and take a read. So far, for many of you guys out there who are new to this, I've reviewed Dragon Ball AF, Dragon Ball Legendary, Dragon Ball X, Dragon Ball New Age, and I might be going back and redoing some. So in case you guys want me to go back and redo Dragon Ball New Age, or perhaps even do some other mangas, go on ahead and let me know down below. Thank you all for watching as always, and I'll be seeing you all in the next Dragon Ball Multiverse manga review. Take it easy, guys. Peace.